Hi everybody, I'm Teresa Perrin, and last night, if you saw my video on if you own Mmtlp on TD Ameritrade, watch this ASAP. I had promised you that I was going to make a video today regarding Mmtlp and my thoughts. Guys, this is absolutely making me feel sick to my stomach. I literally spent hours doing DD and research yesterday, trying to come up with my true thoughts. I watched some other people's takes on it, and I am completely disgusted with the entire thing, to be perfectly honest with you, because it seems to me like this market corruption just continues to get worse and worse. As somebody who has owned Mmtlp since it was distributed from the Torchlight spinoff, which, guys, anybody who doesn't understand what Mmtlp was, you need to realize that this was never, ever supposed to be traded. When a company issues a spinoff type dividend, normally you get a placeholder in your account, which is like either some weird numbers with a number of shares, or, you know, it could even be whatever this ticker came up as, but normally what I see in my account is like numbers, and there's shares assigned to it that eventually, when it gets filled, you'll see the ticker that it comes up with if it's going to be trading as another company, or if it's just a paid out dividend, you get that directly added to your account under that ticker. In this case, we should have probably seen that group of numbers and not a ticker Mmtlp that is being traded. First red flag to me on Mmtlp was MMAT and Torchlight were both NASDAQ traded stocks. Why is this ticker trading on the OTC market? And why is it trading at all? That is not what was ever intended in this ticker. And right then and there, I knew that they were screwed. Now, if you were a holder of Torch prior to this MMAT spinoff and the whole situation that occurred that created this Mmtlp, or this dividend that we were supposed to be receiving, it is from the sale of the land that contained all of this oil that we've all been waiting many, many months for, right? And when it started trading, it went into our account with like, I want to say it was like $1, where it sat for a very long time. But if you tried to buy it, because people started saying you can trade it, and I was like, what? Because I noticed the price would change by a few cents or go up and down between $1 and $2 or whatever the case was. It was just very odd. And I was trying to figure out why that was happening. Well, I would get a notification when I tried to purchase it saying that you needed to call to buy those shares. And I was like, okay, that was my proof that you could buy them. And that caused a red flag, because why can you buy a spinoff dividend that was only supposed to go to shareholders? Now, guys, you need to know I never purchased a single share of this, because the whole thing to me was odd. However, I own it because I own Torch for that reason. Now, if you were in Torch, we were all waiting for a humongous squeeze. And I would say there was a decent sized squeeze where it went up to $20. You know, it started running in the very end, but I don't believe that all the shorts were covered. I believe it got to a certain point and all of a sudden started pulling back. And I believe that was the reason that Mmtlp began trading to begin with. Now, that's the background behind it. So Mmtlp was not supposed to be traded. They created, and they being, from my understanding, and I could be 100% wrong in this, but from what I've heard, Citadel is the market maker behind Mmtlp. And if anybody knows or can confirm that, I am getting that from Boss Blunts. Again, I have not confirmed that myself. I'm not really sure, but I believe that it's Citadel based on what he is saying. And apparently he's done a lot of DD on this, but a lot of people are not happy with his opinion. Guys, I can't say either way, because I can see sides of his opinion and I can see other sides. To be perfectly honest, the reality of the situation is I believe Mmtlp was created because there were heavily shorted in Torch. They needed shares for this dividend because there's only supposed to be, what, 165.5 million approximately? and that's off the top of my head, so forgive me if I'm off by a few, but I believe it's around 165.5 million shares. Now, let's suppose with all of their synthetics and everything else that they created and the shares that they lent out, because supposedly if you ask your brokerage, you're not allowed to short this ticker, but that doesn't mean that they can't lend it to other firms, right? And we all know how synthetics get created, because one firm lends to one firm that lends to another firm, and these are all the same shares. So essentially, you know, one share could become 3, 5, 10 different shares because you got multiple people lending it out. That same one share. Problem. Big, big problem, because NextBridge only has a spot for 165.5 million shares of this privately held company. NextBridge and Mmtlp Metamaterials never approved the trading of this ticker, and they have been very vocal about that. So guys, I believe that Citadel, or the market maker, created Mmtlp in hopes that they would get people that didn't know what it was sitting in their account either get margin called so that they could empty out their position of Mmtlp. I'm sure that was probably one of the first ones that they closed out if somebody got a margin call, right? It would make sense. So either they would get shares back that way, and we all know that retail has been notoriously getting a lot of margin calls because they've been destroying retail accounts, which is why I advise people never to trade with margin. And I have one account with margin, and it's ugly. I mean, guys, you have to have those funds available to keep putting in, because they'll keep making you put in more and more when the price, even when the price is going up. It doesn't make sense. So my advice is never use margin, because if they want to pull a margin call, guess what? They're going to liquidate your Mmtlp. You better believe it. Now they only have a couple more days, so just make sure that your funds are in that account if you have margin, guys, because that's how they may try to get these. That's one thing that comes to mind. So please, if you have margin due, make sure that you have it paid. Now, my other thought is that why did this stop trading? Well, okay, guys, if you pull up on Finra the trading, you get Mmtlp halt code U3. It's an OTC equity and it's halted. Now, what is a U3? U3 is extraordinary circumstances. Well, what are the extraordinary circumstances? Honestly, I think they went to go try to balance this position and realized that it was very much off balance. Now, again, that is pure speculation and nobody really knows for sure. But let's take a look at what Finra says. It says, attention trading and market making legal and compliance operation systems, uniform practice advisory, trading and quotation halt for Metamaterials Preferred Series A Mmtlp. Effective Friday, December 9th, 2022, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, Inc., FINRA, halted trading and quoting in the Series A preferred shares of Metamaterials, Inc., OTC symbol MMTLP. Pursuant to Rule 6440A3, FINRA has determined that an extraordinary event has occurred or is ongoing that has caused or has the potential to cause significant uncertainty in the settlement and clearance process for shares in Mmtlp, and that therefore halting trading and quoting in Mmtlp is necessary to protect investors and the public interest. Okay, pause for 1 second. Is this really to protect investors and the public interest, or is this to save face and protect the market makers and hedge funds that have created this ticker that never should have? And probably either lent it out or shorted it, or who the heck knows what they did, but probably created so many synthetic shares that do not exist or had transferred over so many synthetic shares from Torchlight that they were not able to, even with probably liquidating accounts or people selling their MMTLP in the beginning, not realizing what it was. And they still were not able to get these shares back. So what do, guys? They're kind of like up a creek without a paddle, in my opinion, right? So now this is drawing even more attention to their situation. And I have to be honest with you, this is very serious, because if information comes to light that what everyone has suspected from the beginning, that there's not enough shares to pay out these shares of NextBridge, and that's brought to light, then that could be a worldwide issue that creates distrust in the U.S. stock market, which, to be perfectly honest, if I were a private company, over my dead body, would I ever want to list on the U.S. stock market? Because what a sure way to have your company get shorted to oblivion and probably bought out for pennies of its value. Look at what they are doing to so many stocks right now. This situation could bring to light one of the biggest scams that is going on in the stock market. And I truly, truly hope that they do not cover their butts and protect them, because this needs to be brought to light. But I have to be very honest with all of you. I do not think it ever will be. I think they're going to come up with some kind of scandal to prevent that from ever happening. And well, I'm going to tell you my thoughts. Please remember that everything I say here is my personal opinion, and any retailer or YouTuber that you're talking to or listening to about this, it's their opinion. Nobody can say for certain what's going to happen with this stock, because none of us know, guys. We can speculate, we can entertain you with our thoughts, but fact of the matter is, no one knows 100% for sure. So please keep that in mind, whether you're listening to me or to anybody else regarding this. We can tell you the facts that the stock's halted, but what's going to become of it, nobody really knows, except for obviously Finra, likely the DTCC, and probably some of these hedge funds. And I would say these hedge funds are well aware, and Citadel was probably well aware, based on the shorting of MMTLP, or the stock price drive down the day prior to this happening, right? Look at all the shares that were sold off, or that or the market maker decreased that price somehow, right? Down to that $2 and whatever cent it closed at. Guys, you don't think they knew about this going into that, and that's why these shares sold off? Somebody knew. That's what I see. Somebody knows something, right? In my personal opinion. Guys, if you think that this is going to end well for retail, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but so far from what we've seen with AMC and GME and other retail heavily invested in stocks, retail never wins. These corporations, these market makers, these hedge funds, they pay big money to these people, in my opinion, to protect themselves. They make these huge political contributions and other things so that, guess what? It's almost like they're untouchable, and that's not okay by any means. We are supposed to be in a free and fair marketplace, and this is nothing free and fair about it. But please don't have grandiose delusions that we're going to get some big payout for this, because I don't see that happening, and I'm not trying to upset you. I'm just trying to be honest that they have a big problem. And if they expose this problem, it will create worldwide distrust in the U.S. stock markets. You best believe that they're going to do whatever they possibly can, once again, to fix the problem without us benefiting from the rewards. I mean, if Robinhood taking away the buy button and being allowed to stop that squeeze of GameStop happened, and nothing was done of it, do you think something's going to happen with MMTLP? Just ask yourself that question. Comment below your thoughts. I'd love to hear them. And guys, I'm not trying to be the bearer of bad news. I would love for us all to, you know, get $500, $1,000 a share. Yeah, that'd be fabulous, but that's not realistic of the reality of what's going to happen. And I don't think that this is going to end well for retail. Okay, let me finish reading this and then I'll get into my next thought, because I don't think that you guys are going to like to hear it, but it's probably closer to the truth than what others are telling you. All right, the trading and quoting halt will end concurrent with the deletion of the symbol effective Tuesday, December 13th, 2022. See updated Finra daily list announcement of December 8th, 2022 regarding Mmtlp available here. See also Form S1 registration statement for the NextBridge Hydrocarbons Inc. stating that immediately after the spinoff, all shares of Series A non-voting preferred stock of Meta shall be canceled. Available here. Questions regarding this notice can be directed to Finra Market Operations at, and guys, good luck trying to call this number, because guess what? You're not going to get through. But if you want the number, it's 866-776-0800, option 2. All right, so if you refer to Meta, they will tell you that this stock never should have been created. It never should have been traded, and that the only people that are entitled to a dividend are the original shareholders of Torchlight, aka became Meta Materials, right? That got this initially distributed to them, such as myself, right? I'm an original shareholder. I didn't purchase my shares, so I should be entitled to a share of NextBridge. Now, what's going to happen to those people that purchased their shares thinking, based on what they read on the stock, that they were going to get a share of NextBridge as long as they purchased it before, I believe it was December 8th, right? It was the final day, and then December 9th, yesterday, we weren't even able to trade it to sell it. Well, supposedly, they were supposed to get a share of NextBridge as well. Well, okay, but if there's only 165.5 million shares, how is it that all of these people that were buying it up could possibly get NextBridge? Guys, I love to know, because if there's only 165.5 million, and let's say they created, I don't know, 500 million shares, well, what happens to those 335 million that aren't the originals, that are synthetic shares? I don't know. But if the stock is going to be canceled, now, please keep in mind, they traded the word from deleted to canceled. And I'm thinking that there's something specific in this terminology. If anyone has the time to do some DD and find something in the terminology canceled that would give us a clue, please hit me up and let me know your thoughts, because I'd love to share it with people. And unfortunately, I have plans to take my elderly aunt out this weekend, and away actually for the rest of the weekend. So I'm not going to have time to do this right now. But guys, there's a puzzle that needs to be solved. There's a big situation on the horizon, and I'm telling you, I don't have a good feeling about it. Are these shares going to be canceled and everybody loses their money? God, I hope not, because guess what? Yes, I think that that would be a lawsuit that we would all be able to go to court, or anybody that's involved that doesn't get paid out for their shares the proper amount of whatever NextBridge ends up being valued at. But guess what? You get pennies on the dollar, and you know who gets the money? The attorneys. So as great as it sounds to do a lawsuit, it's not. I mean, yeah, you might recover a few cents on the dollar, but the people who get rich in a lawsuit is the attorneys when it comes to the stock market and these kind of lawsuits. It's not a third, guys. It's the majority that they take. So unfortunately, that is probably going to happen, but the payout, don't expect to get rich off of it because you're not going to. I'm just being honest. I just don't see how they can make this end well for everybody unless they start calling people up and offering to buy their shares for X amount of dollars. Will some people give in? Yeah, maybe. Will some people say, no, I'm not selling until you give me X amount? Yeah, maybe. I'm sure. Rightfully so. I mean, basically, guys, the way I think about it is they stole another squeeze, or potentially another squeeze. Now, that's assuming that they don't have these shares that we all assume they don't, right? It's hard to say. They've had a long time to get these shares back, but guys, by allowing trading and selling this to the public when it never should have been sold, and there's only X amount of shares, and you can watch, there's plenty of videos out there with these hedge funds saying that they are allowed to create synthetic shares when they don't have the liquidity. Well, guys, the other problem becomes, why did they choose the OTC market to list this stock when it was a NASDAQ traded company? So if there was a spinoff and a placeholder, wouldn't it be held on the NASDAQ? I mean, and why was it allowed to be traded to begin with? That's where they need to go back to, and that's where the problem is. And the sad reality is, Citadel, if they're the market maker, now again, I'm assuming based on information that I read, and forgive me if it's not correct, but I don't honestly know, but I'm taking Boss Blunts for his words that it's Citadel. Guess what? Likely they get slapped with a small fine and get to walk away from this. Yet again. And somehow I just don't feel that retail is going to get what they deserve. My prayers are that they are not going to delete or cancel out this stock and not give retail a single penny or give them the $2.90 that it last traded at. But something tells me in my gut that they're going to screw retail, and that if you were not an original Meta shareholder and you purchased these shares, that is a possibility. Now, again, that is pure speculation, but there's something in this verbiage, and I've been going over and trying to read contracts and other things to figure it out. And if you look at all of Meta's things, they say the only people entitled to receive this were the original Torchlight holders. So again, this seems like a scam OTC ticker that was created to screw over the retail traders. I hate to say it, guys, but that's my thoughts. And I pray I'm wrong. Now, there is an article that came out that I'd like to share with you. Oh, and a couple other things. So this is, a lot of people have been asking, is Finra allowed to even do what they did? Technically, guys, Finra can do what they want to do, and here's what it says. Finra may halt trading and quotation if it determines that an extraordinary event has occurred or is ongoing that has had a material effect on the market for the OTC stock, or may cause major disruption to the marketplace or significant uncertainty in the settlement and clearance process. So guys, guess what? I would certainly say that this absolutely meets this definition, because how can they clear it when it doesn't balance, and it never has and never will, and it never should have been traded? So yes, they have every right to halt this, but to be quite honest with you, whoever cleared this ticker for trading to begin with, which I'm guessing that they had to apply through Finra, or how do you uplist a stock, right? I'd have to do some research to see specifically what the process is, but whoever allowed this to begin with ought to be fired. And you know what? Retail deserves to be compensated for this big bunch of BS that they created. But guys, you know as well as I do by now, they are not out to protect us. And you know what? I hope to God that they do. But yeah, I need to be honest with you. It is not retail that these people protect. And if you go and you look at who's on the board of Finra, you can see for yourself, it's a bunch of hedge funds, executives. It is not people that are going to look after retail's best interest. And this is a major problem. This makes me never, ever want to invest in another company again. It makes me just solely want to day trade, because you cannot trust these people with our money, because they are out to screw us. They do not want us in the market, and they are doing everything they can to rip us off, in my opinion. Now, the process is similar for OTC stock trading halts. Finra disseminates a notice of the halt to the marketplace. At that time, broker-dealers may not quote or trade the security until Finra gives notice that the halt is no longer in effect, or until 10 business days have passed, unless Finra determines to continue the halt for longer than 10 days. Now, any of you that were trading or investing in BBIG knows that Finra did a very long halt back in August on BBIG, right? And that was halted for, God, I would say at least 10 days. I don't know if they extended it or not. I forget that whole thing. I care to put it behind me. But guys, it was an absolute crazy mess. And look at what's happened to the stock ever since price-wise. My other thought was, if they never intended to give people trading Mmtlp shares of NextBridge, and if shorts didn't have to cover, but supposedly there are no shorts in this. If you call your brokerage, they will say that this stock was not shortable. But guys, because it's not shortable and they couldn't short it, doesn't mean that there can't be synthetic shares that were carried over from Torchlight or that were created to cover the shares that they were supposedly selling that they didn't have access to. Now, what happens to all of those synthetic shares? Well, if it's canceled, do they go away? Do they get away with keeping the money and never having to come up with a share? Do people get paid out $2 and whatever cents it's down to when they halted? We're going to find out, but don't be surprised if that's what happens. My gut tells me, and that would be better than my worst case thought scenario, would be if they deleted it, which notice they changed the name from deleted to canceled. One of them makes me think that people get nothing, like when a ticker gets delisted. Okay, if you ever owned a stock that got delisted, do you know what happens? Because I do, because unfortunately it happened to me, and thank God it was only a couple $100. But it was actually on TD Ameritrade, and that stock is actually still sitting in my account under, let me see if I can pull it up on my iPad. And it shows the dollar amount that it last traded at, but guess what? I can't get paid that. I can't do anything with it. It just sits there. It's kind of ridiculous. It's UNGS. UNGS. I don't know, but that was like 2 or 3 years ago now that I was in that one, and they all of a sudden halted trading on it and never resumed the ticker. And guess what? There that money sits. And it's around the same price value too, because I think it's in my account as $290. Sorry, $210, but the stock was trading at 0.006 cents. So however many shares of that I had at that amount equaled $210, right? And guess what? I lost all $210. And I don't know if that was a gain or a loss or what it was at this point. I don't really care. I care not to remember it. But again, that was an OTC name, and that made me never want to touch an OTC ticker again. So I have a feeling that this OTC is because they can get away with murder because they're not regulated like the NASDAQ is, and that they're going to screw us. And I'm sorry to say this, but please let me know your comments below, guys. Hopefully this video was useful to some of you, and I pray that everybody, you know, gets their money back or gets something out of this. I'd love for them to start trading, opening it back up. Hopefully, you know, they fight for us, George or John Berta. I don't know, guys. I mean, I did send a message under one of George's tickers on Twitter saying, because he's been silent, and that was very upsetting to me. So, let me show you. Sorry, my mouse is sticking. I'll read it to you. I said, you owe your shareholders an explanation as to why MMTLP was halted and what you are doing about it. I plan to make a video on market corruption due to today's actions and would like to hear personally from you as to what happened to the shorts. Some think you are a part of this. Guys, there's a lot of people speculating, saying that they're part of it. I personally don't believe so. I believe that they never agreed to have this ticker traded to begin with. I believe that they've been targeted by these companies as well. I believe that they're on our side. I just want to be perfectly clear about that. I personally don't think that they are a part of this. God, I hope they're not, because that'd be even worse than I suspect. But I never got a response back. But I'm sure that legally wise, his lawyers have probably told him, you know, not to entertain retail investors at this point, because I'm sure they're probably spending their time trying to fight and figure out what's happening themselves, because this is BS, and it seems like this whole time they have been targeting them. And just look at MMAT's stock and what they've done to that price. And even yesterday, what did they do? They shorted the crap out of it to the point that, guys, there are no shares of MMAT left to borrow. So if you haven't seen my MMAT, the real short squeeze, check out that video, because there's an opportunity there, and maybe we can all get some of our money back by squeezing the crap out of MMAT and making these shorts really have to freaking pay, because somebody needs to. What they did is wrong. I feel like it's just as bad as when they took the buy button away, and this corruption needs to end. If anyone has a solution to it, I will be thinking of ways myself. But unfortunately, you know, when we have a corrupt government, we have an SEC, Finra, the DTCC, that all seem to be protecting these market makers and hedge funds that are continued to allow to do these corrupt acts and screw over investors. What's our solution, guys? And please don't comment below with all these violent messages, because I understand you're frustrated, but violence is not going to get us the results that we want. So if you have real solutions and real answers, I would love to hear them. There's also a petition going around to have the president of, I don't know if it's Finra or the DTCC that somebody started. I have it on my Twitter page. I signed it, you know, to have him removed. But guys, please let me know your thoughts below. Love to hear them. And I hope that I didn't upset anyone. I'm just being honest with my personal opinion, and I don't think this is going to end well for retail. But don't think that that's what I want, because 100% I am on every retail trader's side. I mean, really, this stuff disgusts me, but I just think that once again, we're going to get the boot, because it seems like, you know, the punishment always falls on us for some reason, for their illegal acts that they get away with, and it's BS. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.